We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Vav Amid Beis in Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 36b. On the previous Amid, the Gemara brought a brisa with regards to the wearing of the tefillin. Can they be worn past nightfall? The Tanakama said no. Rabbi Yaakov and the Chachamim said yes. And on the previous Amid, the Gemara has just said that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yaakov. They should not be worn past nightfall. And so the Gemara now continues and asks, V'har Rav Chisda v'Rabba bar Rav Huna, but Rav Chisda and Rabba bar Rav Huna matzlu b'hu b'orsa. They did daven Ma'ariv wearing the tefillin. That seems to go against paskening against Rabbi Yaakov. And the Gemara continues and answers, I hope Pliga, that actually argues. In other words, Rav Chisda and Rabba bar Rav Huna, they disagree and they say that tefillin can be worn past nightfall, even though we quoted on the previous Amud that the halacha might not be like Rabbi Yaakov. But the Gemara continues and asks, Umi Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna Hachi, does Rabba bar Rav Huna really say that tefillin can be worn past nightfall? Ve'amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, but Rabba bar Rav Huna said, Safik chashecha, safik lo chashecha, if it's a period where it's not clear whether it's dark or not, so lo cholet, so one doesn't remove the tefillin, velo meniach, and one doesn't place on the tefillin. And so we can infer from that, havada chashecha, once darkness certainly comes, cholet, so then the tefillin do need to be removed, and that goes against what we just said above, that again, Rabba bar Rav Huna would daven Ma'ariv, he would not necessarily remove the tefillin, even though nightfall arrived. And the Gemara continues and answers, Hasam over there, when we're saying that Vadai Chashecha, the tefillin should be removed, that's Be'erev Shabbos Itmar. That whole discussion was talking about an Erev Shabbos, because there's an issue of wearing tefillin on Shabbos that had nothing to do with tefillin at night. But the Gemara continues and asks, but my Kosavar, but what exactly does Rabba bar Rav Huna hold? Ikosavar Laila Zman tefillin, if he holds that Laila, that night is a time to wear tefillin, so Shabbos Nami Zman tefillin. Shabbos is the same as nightfall, and so Shabbos also would be a time to wear tefillin. And Ikosavar Shabbos Lav Zman tefillin, if he holds that Shabbos is not a time to wear tefillin, so Laila Nami Lav Zman tefillin. Laila also is not a Zman tefillin, and so therefore it doesn't make sense to say that his comment was with regards to Erev Shabbos. That should be the same as night anyhow. As the Gemara continues and explains, Shabbos, because from the same source where Shabbos is excluded, Mehasam and Mati Leilos, it's from that same source that night is excluded. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, V'shamarta sachuka hazos l'mo'ada miyomim yomima. It says you're going to keep this law miyomim yomima, and we understand that to mean yomim v'lo leilos. It means to say days and not nights, and according to this, we're going on tefillin over here in this pasuk. It should be during the day and not at night. Mi yomim v'lo kol yomim, and it says mi yomim. It means not all days. Prat l'shabbosos v'yomim tovim. That comes to exclude Shabbos and Yontiv. Divrei Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, these are the words of Rabbi Yossi HaGlili. And so you see that Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, who excludes from this pasuk night, also excludes Shabbos, so there's no reason to make a distinction between Laila and Shabbos. And the Brisa continues with another interpretation of this pasuk. Rabbi Akiva says, Lo nemar chuka zu ela lepesach bilvad. The chuka over here that's actually being referenced in this pasuk is actually talking about Pesach. Rashi explains, Ela lepesach bilvad v'hachi kamar. What it means to say is as follows, Asay Pesach mishana l'shana. Perform the mitzvah of Karban Pesach each year, meaning according to Rabbi Akiva, the pasuk is essentially saying that the Karban Pesach, the mitzvah of Karban Pesach is one that continues each and every year. And so in any case, again, the question of the Gemara is Shabbos and Laila really all the same source, so why would we make a distinction? And the Gemara continues and answers that Rabba bar Rav Huna in fact does make a distinction because nafkalei mehechad the nafkalei Rabbi Akiva, because he learns out from the source of Rabbi Akiva. He doesn't learn like Rabbi Yossi HaGlili, meaning he learns to exclude Shabbos from a different source which does not involve Laila, does not involve nighttime. The Gemara continues, the Tanya, as we learned in the following Brisa. Rabbi Akiva says, Yochel yoniach adam tefillin b'Shabbos uv'yamim tovim. One might think that a person should wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, "V'hoya los al yadechu letotafos beinei." It says that tefillin is an os; it is a sign. Misha tzrichin os. Those days which require a sign, that's when one wears tefillin. Yatsu Shabbosos v'yamim tovim. That excludes Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shein gufan os. That they themselves, the days themselves, are a sign, and therefore Shabbos Yom Tov is excluded from tefillin, and that's the source for Rabba bar Rav Huna. That's a source only for Shabbos and Yom Tov, and not for Laila. So essentially, he does make a distinction between Shabbos and Yom Tiv and Laila. And Rashi explains, Nafgalei Kilomar, what the Gemara means to say is that according to Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, Liolam Kasavar Laila Zman Tfilinu. Really, Rabbi Bar Rav Huna holds Laila is a time to wear tefillin. V'Shabbos Mimit Le Mehecha Denafgalei Rabbi Akiva, and he excludes Shabbos from the same source as Rabbi Akiva, Shehein Atzman Os, because those days are a sign, Ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, it's a sign between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, Dechsiv Ki Osi, as it's written in the Pasuk, it says Ki Osi, that it is a sign. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rebbe Lazar says, Kol haminiach tefillin achar shkias acham, anyone who wears tefillin after shkias acham, after sunset, once night arrives, over biaseh, he transgresses a positive commandment. For Rabbi Yochanan Amar over belav, and Rabbi Yochanan says he transgresses a negative commandment. Rashi explains over belav, dechsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, v'shamarta, it says the word v'shamarta, as we quoted above, v'chol hishamer lo sasehu. The idea is, according to this opinion, that it's a lav. Anytime it says hishamer v'shamarta, that's an indication of a lo saseh, it's an indication of a negative commandment. As the Gemara continues and explains, Lema b'Reb Avin Amar Reb Ilah kamiflagi, let us say that this machlokus is, they're arguing within the statement of Reb Avin from Reb Ilah. To Amar Reb Avin Amar Reb Ilah, because Reb Avin says that Reb Ilah says, Kol makam shenemar hishamer pen v'al, anytime it says hishamer or pen or al, eino ela lo saseh, it refers to a lo saseh. And so then we'll explain as follows. Demar isled Rabbi Avin, that one opinion, meaning Rabbi Yochanan, who says it's a lo saseh, he holds like Rabbi Avin. It says hishamer, it says v'shamarta, therefore it's a lo saseh over here. Umar, and then the other opinion, which is Rabbi Lazar, less like the Rabbi Avin, he doesn't hold the Rabbi Avin, and therefore he considers it to be a positive commandment. That's Rabbi Lazar's opinion. The Gemara continues and says, Lo, no, to kuli alma islu de Rabbi Avin Amar Rabbi Law. It could be that everybody agrees with what Rabbi Avin said that Rabbi Law said. V'hacha b'hacha miflagi, and here the machlokes is as follows. Mar savar, one holds hishamer de lav, if it's a hishamer by a negative, so then lav, then we consider it a negative. V'hishamer di aseh, and if it's a hishamer that's written in the positive tone, so then it's considered to be a positive commandment, and that's why Rabbi Lazar says it's a positive. Umar savar, and the other opinion, Rabbi Yochanan holds hishamer de aseh, even if it's a hishamer that's written in the positive, nami lav, that is also considered to be a lav. And Rashi explains, hishamer de lav, lav, only a hishamer by a negative is considered a negative commandment according to Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar savar, Rebbe Lazar holds hishamer dechsib b'milsa de mizer rachmona lo saseh have a lav gomer. Rebbe Lazar holds if it says hishamer by something the Torah is warning not to do, that's considered a full-fledged lav. Lilkos, there's even malchus. Kigon hishamer b'negat saras, like it says in the pasuk hishamer b'negat saras, the mashma shalo yokutz b'harasa. There the understanding is he shouldn't cut off the tzaras. V'chein hishamer l'cha pentechros bris. Also we find that by hishamer l'cha pentechros bris. Aval hishamer diaseh, but if it's a hishamer with a positive connotation, could go in high, like over here, the mashma lasos tefillin, it's mashma to do the mitzvah of tefillin, so then asehu, then it is considered to be a mitzvah aseh, a positive commandment. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rebbe Lazar, and Rebbe Lazar says, V'im l'shamron mutter, even though one should not wear the tefillin at night, but if it's in order to protect them, then it is mutter. V'yamar Ravina, and Ravina said, Hava Yosef nakame de Ravashi, I was sitting before Ravashi, V'choshach v'iniach tefillin, it was dark, and he put on tefillin, V'yamri lei, and they said to him, L'shamron kaboilu, Mar, is the master doing this to protect them? V'yamar li, and he said to me, in yes, V'chazise l'daite, now I saw in his understanding, the lav l'shamron huboy, that actually he didn't do it in order to protect it. That was not needed. But kasavar, but he held halacha that this is the halacha that it's worn at night. However, ve'in morin kain. However, we don't teach that publicly, and that's why he responded that it was l'shamron, it was to protect them. And Rashi explains, v'im l'shomron shelo yovedu, if it's to protect them that they shouldn't get lost, mutter lahanichon, it's mutter to put them on afilu la'achar shkias hachama, even after sunset. But then the Gemara said kasavar, that he held halacha delaila zman tefillinu. He held the halacha is that the nighttime is the time of tefillin. However, ve'in morin kain. However, we don't teach to do that publicly. Why? Shema yishkachem v'yashin b'hem. We're afraid a person might forget about them and end up falling asleep in them, which is not allowed. Midakamer le l'shomron kaboina. That's why he said to him that I'm doing it in order to protect, because he didn't want to issue that ruling publicly. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna says, Chayiv adam lemashmesh betfilin b'chol shah, a person needs to touch his tefillin all the time, kal v'chomer mitzitz, and that's a kal v'chomer from the tzitz that is worn by the Kohen Gadol, the front plate, umatzitz she'ein bo ela azkara achas, if the tzitz which only mentions HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name once, Amra Torah, the Torah says, v'haya al mitzcho tamid, it says that it has to be on his head all the time, which means shelo tasiach daitu mimenu, he shouldn't divert his attention from it. So tefillin she'yesh ban azkaras harbe, tefillin which has many mentions of the Shem Hashem, alachas kama v'kama, all the more so he should not divert his attention. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the sages taught in the Brayso, Yod chazu samol, when it says on your hand, it's on the left arm that the tefillin is placed. Ata omer small, you say it's the left. Oenu al yamin, maybe it's the right. Talmud lomer, the pasuk says, Af yodi yosta aretz v'mini tipcha shamayim. It says in the pasuk, Yodi, that's a reference to the left, because the pasuk goes on to talk about v'yamini, the right. So you see that Yad refers to the left, and that is a pasuk that is found in Sefer Yeshayahu. And the Gemara continues, V'yomer, it also says in the pasuk, this is in Shoftim, the pasuk says, Yoda la yosed tishlachna v'mino lahalmus amelim. Again, a similar proof. It says v'yamina, the right, and it says Yoda, that's the other hand, that's the left hand. V'yomer, it also says in Tehillim, the pasuk says, Lama soshev yodcha v'minecha mikerev chekcha chale. And so again, the same idea, it mentions the right, and then it also mentions Yad, indicating that the Yad is the left hand. And Rashi explains, Yodi yostarts v'mini midechsev Yodi v'yamin, since it says Yodi and then it says Yamin, the right, Shema mino Yad hainu small, we see that Yad refers to the left, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph.